effective and equitable organizing. Those organizations are Centro de Trabajadores Unidos en la Lucha, the TOOL, Unidos Minnesota, and Inquilinos Unidos por Justicia, also known as Renters United for Justice. We'd like to also thank the candidates for joining us tonight and take an opportunity to introduce them briefly. We've got Mr. Omar Pate. We've got Mr. Dwayne Davis. And Mr. Jazz Hampton. We also wanted to let you all know that we did invite the current mayor to the previous forum that we were going to host, as well as the current one, and he declined to join workers, renters, and residents tonight.
And to the candidates for being here. I am Callie Myers, an organizer with Unidos Minnesota, and another one of your MCs for tonight. Thank you to all the candidates again for being here, and to all of you for joining us tonight. Through the shared struggle to improve the lives of working poor Minnesotans, what has emerged is a deepened commitment by the core organizations that Lisa introduced earlier to align long-term. While our policy priorities may diverge at times, our collective analysis of power and organizing strategies are aligned. Collectively, we have a vision for Minneapolis where everyone can thrive at home and at work, find peace and joy in community, and live without fear of discrimination or violence, regardless of their economic, social, or citizenship status, regardless of their zip code, race, gender, or language. There is power in this collective here in this room tonight. And we want a mayor who supports that vision and works with us, not against us. That's right. Tonight is not about endorsing any one candidate, but rather about hearing from each candidate on the issues that we care about most. Please. Now I'd like to give an overview of our structure for the evening so that everyone is aware. We have two groups of people who will each be asking a question for the candidates to answer. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer the question each. If any candidates are called out by name or title in the answers of others, they will be given 30 seconds for a rebuttal immediately after the answering candidate's time runs out. Please note that we are on a tight timeline with these questions and that Louisa and I will be redirecting you if you veer too far off the topic of the original question. This is not a time for long-winded speeches, so please be cognizant of your time. You can look to our timekeeper, Will, from Inquilinos, for direction as needed. And Will is down there in the blue. After the first set of questions have been asked and answered, we'll have a new group of people join us on stage for a second set of questions, and then we will close.
And now we'll hear from our partner Jennifer with a few words on language justice before we begin with our first set of questions for the candidates.
My name is Jennifer Arnold. I'm the director at Inquilinos Unidos por Justicia, and I'm just here to talk a little bit about how we are in a multilingual space. We live under a political regime right now that wants to divide us and wants to use the fact that we speak different languages to keep us apart from one another. And we are fighting against that tonight. And so we are in a space where we will be speaking Spanish and English. Any Spanish spoken from the front of the room will be interpreted. And so I ask if candidates speak Spanish that you interpret yourself into English. Our folks asking questions will be in Spanish, will be repeated in English up here. I want to teach you all a few signs that we're going to use. So Nadia is interpreting down here. I will interpret for her. Thank you, Nadia. Because we're timed, folks are going to feel the need to speak fast.
Oh, yes.
But that means that we can't keep up as interpreters. And so if you see Nadia or me go like this means slow down. And I want everyone in the crowd to do it with us if we do it. Right? So that the candidates can see us. Right? If someone is speaking too softly and Nadia and I can't hear, we're going to go like this. And this means speak louder. And if we do this, we want you all to do this. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to say one more thing for Spanish speakers so they know where to go if there's a problem. Si ustedes tienen un problema con su equipo de interpretación, que vengan hacia adelante, a donde de ahí, y podemos ayudar a averiguar qué está pasando. So thank you very much. I really appreciate y'all being here.
Now I would like to welcome our first leader, Kyle, who has the first question.
My name is Klein, actually, but that's okay. I'm a professor in South Minneapolis, in a building owned by Investment Property, a California-based corporation profiting from Section 8 and low-income housing tax credits, while neglecting to maintain. I've been organizing a tenant union with my neighbors because we've been facing major repair issues, safety issues, and threats of eviction. 2 weeks ago, our union delivered a letter to management asking them to recognize our union and to come to the table to discuss our needs. Instead, they called the police on us, one of our members, and have started sending eviction notices. Our landlord has shown to be committed to profit over people. Can you commit to coming to our buildings to meet with us and show your support for our union? What specific actions will you take as mayor to stand with tenant unions fighting against retaliation for a safe and healthy place to call home?
For this first round, the order will be Davis, Fate, and Hampton.
Yeah,
Is it this causing
I think it might be.
it? This thing?
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to start by answering that question. Yes, I will certainly committed to meeting with renters, anyone who's organizing for support. But I want to speak to a larger thing about things that we can do specifically. What you have just described is something that I have been talking about quite often, that government support of housing has been increasingly privatized. That means that the government has got out of business, has been forfeiting a role that it should play in it. Now, I'm not saying that private developers should not be in business. I'm a firm believer that we must continue to increase the supply of housing so that the market will go down. Meaning, if you only have privatized development of housing, you are bidding up the price of housing. And the counter to that is government action involved. We should be incentivizing public and nonprofit development of housing. We have many of them around. They simply just do not have access to the type of capital that private developers have. And so if we had government very actively engaged in incentivizing public and nonprofit development of housing, then they can set prices and make sure that the market is not flying away in the cost of housing. And the way we can do that, by the way, is we have a lot of options. We have the power of the purse, we have zoning, we have all things at our disposal to play a role in making sure that housing is affordable. But I start off with this. One reason that people or private developers, they have a very simple incentive. They have to make a profit. The math has to math. And so there's no incentive to go down to deeply affordable housing, people at the lowest income scale, 0 to 30K month. There's just no way that they will do it. But if the government actively engages in doing that, actually is a part of that, then we can do that. Here's the value. People need to be at the center of planning, policy, and development of housing. People. That needs to be at the center. And I promise you that's what my administration would do.
Oh, it's not buzzing for me, so lucky. I guess I'm lucky. First, I'll say yes. I would commit to visiting the site and working and listening to all of you. That's number one. Number two, earlier on this year, and actually the end of last year, I got to visit a similar site in Loring Park. I believe it was 115 West Grand and a couple others beside it. And they were experiencing the same situation. They had a situation in which they had their property owner not respecting them. Immediately when you walked in, the front door was broken. Anyone and everyone could walk in. Their mailbox on the side was completely destroyed. So residents had to go to the post office to get their mail, which is a burden on them. There was black mold in the building. In the summertime, there was no AC. In the winter time, there was no heat. On and on and on. And so they got together and they formed their own tenant union as well. And they took the property owner to court. And we've heard similar situations like this across the city where they take on these property owners to court. Sometimes they win. But the issue is that when they win, the owners or the property owners would rather eat the costs of the fines rather than do anything about it. And so there's no real teeth. And I appreciate Dr. Davis mentioning the issue around profit motive versus how we actually help people versus, but another piece of that also, and I think all of us agree upon, is that there's a lot of entities that are out of state that are not Minnesota based, from Atlanta and Los Angeles and New York, buying large swaths of property. And they don't give a damn about keeping people housed. They don't care about the tenants or people living in Minneapolis. Their motive is profits, and point blank period, and that's it. And so we need to do something that has real teeth. Yes, we need to engage the community. We got to engage our tenant unions. We got to engage our renters. But we have to have a city that actually stands up to this and does something about this. Yes, we all agree upon building more affordable housing and securing housing for everyone. But that doesn't mean that the housing isn't of quality and is subhuman conditions. We got to make sure that all people are respected and that their housing conditions are livable.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Jazz Hampton, and I want to first of all thank all of you for being here. I know it's not easy, and it's not always the place you want to be, especially on the very end of summer. So I'm thankful that you're here. And to that point, I also want to thank everyone for putting this event on. The coalition of organizations, when I looked at the list, I thought it's truly representative of the vast majority of the people in our city are encapsulated in these entities, in these groups. So thank you all for doing it, and also seeing the humanity of the people out here, because things like childcare for someone like myself who has 3 children that are 8 and under, and providing opportunities that you all have to make this possible. I appreciate it. Directly to this question, yes, I absolutely would come and support those unions as they form. I think it's vitally important, and similarly to my colleague's last response, I have also met with a leader of one of these tenant unions that were forming. And you know what the interesting part about that was? This individual was a part of the trans community, and what they told me was they felt like they were being attacked. And here's what we know to be true. Renters are often folks that are otherwise marginalized in our society, whether it is socioeconomic differences, that making things difficult, or it's their background. We know that when things like this happen, it disproportionately happens to people that don't have power. So again, they're in a position where they're the people that are being hurt the most. And we have to stand up for our neighbors in that moment, and that's what we're doing. And I agreed, not only when I met with the leader of this union, not only did I agree that I would come visit, they resolved the issue, thankfully, they didn't need it, but I also offered legal support. As a lawyer, I knew folks in this space that I could connect them with to have that legal guidance. I think that also takes me to the next and very important part of this conversation. When we're talking about renters' rights, you need someone to help you implement and defend those rights. And as a part of the work that we will do within my administration, we will work to ensure that people that are facing these issues actually have access to affordable, if not pro bono, legal guidance. Because it's so hard to stand up and fight for yourselves in these moments, and it's even more difficult when you don't have a lawyer helping. The last part that I'll say, we need to take the power and disincentivize folks from being outside the Twin Cities to come in to be landlords. I was just talking to a young Black man that grew up in St. Paul and moved to Minneapolis and became a landlord of a Section 8 a housing unit that has 2 different units. And he said, someone told him, take the washer and dryer. You don't need that within the building, it'll just cost you money. And he said, I grew up in a building like this, and it was so difficult to get to wash our clothes somewhere else. Why in the world would I take it away? Those are the kind of landlords we need in this city, not someone in New York or California or anywhere else.
Mr. Bono. The Minneapolis Police Department has a documented history of excessive force, racial violence, and constitutional violations, mainly targeting the descendants of American slaves freed in communities. Additionally, within the Minneapolis Police Department, officers have direct ties with white supremacist ideologies and organizations, and exhibit white supremacist anti-Black rhetoric and behavior, resulting in unjustifiable force and often death. As mayor of Minneapolis, what will you do to change MPD's policies and practices towards recruiting and promoting harmful officers, and how will you eliminate current white supremacists within the department?
Thank you so much for that question. We are under a court enforceable settlement agreement with the state of Minnesota. It comes after a pattern and practice investigation that proved everything that you just described, that we had bias and discrimination, we had no training in use of force or violation of requirements of use of force. That court enforceable settlement agreement spells out the ways that the police department can begin to correct those things. Here's the point. I was the one who facilitated the community conversations with the independent monitors. And the one thing, we had 4 candidates for independent monitor. And I asked them, after looking around the United States to see their work, they were monitoring consent decrees everywhere from New Orleans to Detroit, from Newark to Oakland. But it was a mixed bag. And I'd say, what happened? Why is it that there were some places that your enforcement, you monitored, that there was an actual failure, that there was no reform, that police did not reform? And they said to me, the most critical thing that you need to make sure that you reform police, and in this case, in Minneapolis, where we have provisions on how to to address bias and discrimination, about what the sanction should be when we find out and how you can be held accountable. But they said to me, the one reason that those consent decrees fail is when the mayor does not keep it front and center and tell you what's going on. It is not enough. It is not enough to pick and choose. In the last report from the independent monitor, the only thing I heard our mayor speak to was all the good stuff. But if you go and read that report, you will see that the independent monitor is warning us about the places that we need more work on. And one of this is that the rank and file, some of them are resisting the training in use of force. Some of them are resisting the training in bias. And so you need a mayor, and be the mayor, that set expectations to the police department of what I want to see. And here's how I want to back it up. I'll tell you about it. I'm not going to tell you all the good news and then hide out the disturbing news from you, because you need to know how well we're doing, if we're meeting our goals, and if we're not, then someone needs to know what for and be fired. And that's what I'll do.
That's a very good question. And as the record stated, we have 2 consent decrees, one federal and one state, that concluded what all of our communities have known for such a long time, that there has been widespread systemic racism, a pattern of racial profiling, and BIPOC communities being hurt. I remember at the Capitol when the last few years, as we were fighting for some police accountability measures that we knew made sense, we had communities show up, multiple organizations show up. And I remember before one of the hearings, an organization met with some of us senators, and they pulled up the website that was worked on, showing all of the complaints listed for each officer, and going through it, showing this officer has 38 complaints. This officer has 25 complaints. This officer is not so bad. He only has a dozen complaints. He's not so bad, right? Which is horrible. And that shouldn't be happening. What we know is that throughout his administration, the last 7-8 years, the mayor has failed at rooting out the systemic racism, the bias. We know that there are officers that have done some pretty evil things in our community, but rather than getting properly disciplined or even terminated, what happens? They get promoted, they go on to train other officers, like we saw with Officer Derek Chauvin, who went on to murder George Floyd. That shouldn't be happening. A lot of the police violence that we're seeing could have been prevented. Lives could have been prevented if we had a mayor that was willing to stand up and protect our community. And we do not have that. And as mayor, that would be my number 1 commitment, that we have a public safety system that truly works for all of us, that protects all of us and not some of us.
I agree. Listen, nod your head. If you're at your job, if your boss and all of your coworkers found out you were in a white supremacist organization, would you be fired? It should be the same within the Minneapolis Police Department. Unequivocally. It shouldn't even be a question that we have to answer on the stage, and the fact that it is terribly, terribly troubling. I met a friend from college that I met with a black man, and he told me after the tragic George Floyd, he said, "Jazz, I had an interaction with Officer Chauvin in the past. And it was terrifying, and I thought my life was on the line, and I didn't even complain about it because I didn't think anyone would hear my complaint." This is the reality of the situation that we are navigating, and frankly, we shouldn't even be debating anymore. We have to implement policies that root out these issues from the very beginning. And if you have a coworker that is doing that, we have to do it. We all too often we start using this phrase, oh, there's just some bad apples. Do we forget the end of the phrase? What happens if there's a bad apple? It will spoil the whole bunch. This can become a culture issue if we do not root it out. And we have to. And that means we have to be actively engaged in the process. We have to give people confidence that if we bring a complaint, not only do we bring it to a result, to process, but it'll be expedited and you will not have to wait for months and months and months and hoping that it doesn't happen to someone else. I've been pulled over a dozen times in my life. Never once received a ticket. We know what this looks like and the feelings, and we do not need a consent decree to tell us, just like Senator Conte said. We are here. So we have to do the work of changing the culture within the police department. I talked to a city leader from another city, from a rural suburb, just earlier today. And you know what he told me? He said, I heard that you are trying to give more money to officers to incentivize them. That's not going to be the thing that helps their culture. That's the problem that we're facing within the city of Minneapolis. If we do not address that, we won't get to an end result. I was a lawyer in a law firm in downtown Minneapolis 5 years ago. And after the tragedy of George Floyd, I quit my job to create Signal, which is a platform that connects drivers to an attorney on a video call instantly when they've been pulled over. I left my job and started that company with 2 other Black men because I know this feeling because I lived within a few miles of this building for my entire life. We now serve over 200,000 people across the United States, connecting them to an attorney during these interactions immediately. Our phrase when we started that company was, if they're struggling to legislate, we're going to innovate. Well, I'm here on the stage telling you today that we are going to legislate and change the policies to ensure we do not have to have a system where we have to connect to a lawyer at these moments, because we need to do better within our police department.
Thank you. The next question will be in Spanish. We have Mika here. We will be interpreting consecutively.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Milka Tamara. Trabajo en el sector de la construcción como pintora. En el año pasado me robaron mi salario y cuando le pedí al contratista que me pagara, me envió una foto con una pistola junto a mi cheque. ¿Te imaginas pedir tu salario y que te amenacen con una pistola?
My name is Mika Tamara. I work in the construction industry doing painting. Last year, my wages were stolen, and when asked the contractor for my pay, he sent me a picture of a gun next to my check. Can you imagine asking for your pay and being threatened with a gun?
Mi historia es solo una de las muchas de los trabajadores de la construcción sin sindicato, muchos de los cuales nunca denuncian este tipo de explotación por medio a las represalias. Por esto los trabajadores crearon el programa de la dignidad y el respeto en la construcción, PDR, por sus siglas en inglés, con el fin de garantizar la protección de los derechos laborales de los trabajadores de la construcción sin sindicato, incluida la protección contra la represalia de los trabajadores de la construcción sin sindicato.
My story is just one of many non-union construction workers, many of whom will never report exploitation like this out of fear of retaliation. That's why workers developed the Building Dignity and Respect Program, or BDR, to ensure non-union construction workers' labor rights are protected, including protection from retaliation.
Durante 5 años, los trabajadores de la construcción sin sindicato han pedido unir Providence y Road, de los 3 mayores desarrolladores de viviendas multifamiliares de Minneapolis y en San Pablo, que se añaden el programa de la dignidad y respeto en las construcciones. El año pasado, United Property y Road se reunieron finalmente con miembros de TEDUL para escuchar directamente nuestras experiencias. Pero más allá de las reuniones, ninguna de las 2 empresas ha tomado medidas concretas para abordar nuestras peticiones.
For 5 years, non-union construction workers have called on United Properties and Doors, two of the 3 largest multifamily housing developers in the Twin Cities, to sign into the Building Dignity and Respect program. Last year, United Properties and Doors finally met with the two members to hear directly about our experiences, but beyond meetings, neither company has taken any concrete steps to address our concerns.
¿Cómo utilizarían su cargo del alcalde para presionar a las grandes desarrolladores de viviendas multifamiliares para que se unan al programa de BDR?
How would you use your position as mayor to push large multifamily housing developers to join the BDR program?
Thank you so much, and I am so sorry that you have that experience and you use the word that my campaign has been using since we launched. How we start with dignity. Every person in this city is due dignity, and we as a city should be in the business of making sure that people are the center of our planning, our policy, and of anything we do. But it's specifically to this issue, especially around wage theft. This is what I've been talking about. We just have to be more aggressive in our evaluation, in our monitoring of this kind of activity. And this is not just the city doing it by itself. This is a multi-government, multi-level effort. The county attorney just did an amazing thing, prosecuted a business for wage theft in Hennepin County. Yes. I would direct our city and direct our city attorney to be in very close collaboration with the county attorney to see what ways that we can be a part of that effort, make sure that we are monitoring and investigating businesses to make sure that it's happened, but also making sure that we are talking to workers, non-union and union workers, talking about their rights, about the protections that we're going to afford them, and create opportunities for them to report on these incidents that they're going to be safe and it's going to be confidential so that we can get the information. But not only that, we need to be aggressive in making sure that if any company is found retaliating or harassing people who report them for things that they're violating, then we need to sanction them by preventing them from having business with the city. I mean, real sanction, real punishment for doing this kind of thing. And if you do that, I guarantee you, we will get them to see that we mean business. But it has to be a very aggressive, intentional, proactive, looking for these things. In essence, we have to be in the business of enforcement, and we're going to need you to help us do it, and we're going to protect you when you help us enforce it.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your story. And it is one that's touching that we've heard time and time again, and we know that citywide, statewide, and nationwide, that worker rights are under attack. We know it from our own backyard with the Amazon warehouse in the suburbs. We know it with our Uber and Lyft drivers. We know it with a whole host of hourly work. And the victims are predominantly people that look like you and me, right? People of color and immigrants. And in a time in which our worker rights are under attack, what has our mayor done? You said it better than I can. And rather than strengthening the tools that we have, like our co-enforcement contracts with the city, he decided to cut funding, which is hurtful. Co-enforcement contracts in which we know there are entities that are boots on the ground, in which are protecting our residents and our workers, because we know we can't expect our workers, especially our immigrant workers, to just come out and report some of the challenges that they're facing to the city because of fear of retaliation, right? But coming to an entity or a group that looks like them, that represents them, it makes it a little bit more comfortable. And they can report it and get the protection that they need. But rather than standing up for that kind of labor, the mayor decided to cut funding, which ultimately hurts our workers. And as mayor, I'm committed to fully funding our code enforcement contract citywide to make sure that every single worker is valued and protected. That's number one. Number two, we are a union city. We got to make sure that we have union work, and we have to ensure that no matter every single development that occurs in this city, that there is no wage theft, there is no unfair scheduling practices, there is no labor violations, and in doing so, reversing the several years of harm that we've seen under our current administration, and that's my commitment to you, hopefully as your future mayor.
Thank you for sharing your story. I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's good to see you again, and I appreciate what you're doing. On behalf of so many people in this room and outside. The question, the underlying question of what will you do as mayor? It's more than just bringing those large developers to the table. Yes, of course, as mayor, I'm going to bring those large developers to the table, but the next step is getting them to agree to the standards that we're setting. But that also should not be the last step. The next step is prove to me that you are also following the rules. It isn't a job to stop at just promises, and big promises don't mean much when you're receiving pictures like that. What actually matters is someone following up and saying, prove to me on this checklist that you are doing these things. Because if you don't prove it to me, unfortunately, what we've seen and the patterns we've seen thus far, we can't trust it right now. So be a part of the solution by proving it to us. If you're already doing it, show us that you're doing it. Because if not, we're nervous that this is going to continue happening. And again, it doesn't stop. The reporting is just that we take those steps, make sure they're doing it, and when they aren't, if there is wage theft happening in our city, there needs to be swift and real consequences. Not only so they don't keep doing it again, so that others come and see and say, boy, we don't want to have that in our organization. Let's make sure we're following each and every rule. If there's no actual fight, then there is no point. It's all hat, no hat. You have to actually enforce the rules and make sure people feel it and know that it will happen. That is my commitment as mayor of what I'm going to do, because at the end of the day, wage theft, not going to stop, but we have to repay the workers that have gone through that situation as well. And that's the commitment I'm making to you.
Thank you, and now I'll introduce Lisa from Unidos, Minnesota for the final question of this group.
I work with the Unidos Climate and Equity team, so this question is about climate and equity. In 2023, the city, the mayor, and the city council set a goal of reducing pollution from fossil natural gas 85% by the year 2035. Meeting this goal would protect our families from cancer and asthma and prevent further damage to our climate. But it will not happen without bold leadership and a concrete plan. How will you meet the goal? What is your plan?
Thank you. One of the things that I'm so glad that question, and those goals are wonderful, and so many jurisdictions make those goals. There are two things, however, that always, and I often say it when I see it. I spent 20 years in Washington, D.C. working on one part of my portfolio was climate change and moving conversion to renewables and decarbonization. I was one of the ones that worked on trying to tax carbon out of existence. We failed miserably. But the one thing that we do know is that it's going to cost for us to do it, and there are ways of doing it. And so we can meet that goal, but we have to be very aggressive. I've been really pleased with some of the things that we've done. We've, the city did increase the franchise fee, but we're going to have to be very aggressive in working with utilities to make sure that we have the revenue coming to us, not only so that we can meet those goals, but also so that we can do it equitably. That is, how are we helping people at the lowest end be able to afford moving to a renewable transition in their homes? And so it's going to take real hard work. Some of that hard work is having to challenge, and it is hard. I know it. And city people will tell you, it is hard to go up against Excel and Cinnamon. But those utility companies have made commitments to us. They have made commitments to us. And so we need to hold them to those commitments. And if we have to, we may have to peg the franchise fee to them holding those commitments. That's a tough business, but that's what it is. But the second thing is, I don't think we're using our voice in the city either. We need to be at the Public Utility Commission reminding utility companies what they have committed to us to do. And then finally, because my time is coming up, we need a far more aggressive intergovernmental relations department that is working at every level. We are leaving way too much money on the table in Washington because we are not aggressively working at the federal level. The Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan flooded the zone with money. And I don't think we did any good work at going for it. As mayor, that intergovernmental relations team is going to be aggressively there, making sure that we can get what we need, the revenue to get those targets and to protect it.
As a state senator representing Southside Minneapolis, I quickly learned from communities throughout Minneapolis, our BIPOC communities, the ones that are at the highest risk of getting asthma and cancer and heart disease, that they're the ones that have been largely neglected for so long by our leaders. I was proud to lead on multiple initiatives as a state senator, doing things that advanced our goals citywide and statewide, like leading on the e-bike rebate that obviously wasn't drafted 100% to the way we wanted, but was a damn good first step. We know that because people, tens of thousands of people flooded the website within minutes, taking up every single rebate, all 1,300 of them. We know that we want to incentivize people moving away from cars and going more into transit and making the city more walkable. And I was proud to lead on the minimum parking mandates legislation that, even though we didn't get it across the finish line, we did a very good first step, and we're very hopeful because it does have bipartisan support, supporting the highway justice bill that I led on and I was a co-author on. And also we got 100% clean energy across the finish line. So these are legislation that we know that when you have a progressive legislative body working with an executive that wants to partner with you, that we can get done, but we just don't have that at the city level. I would be proud and honored to support the Block by Block project with some of the organizations here to make sure we're advancing weatherization on our climate resilience goals, implementing the carbon fees that the city council has supported. We know that we have support around shutting down the HERC and shutting it down responsibly, but in doing so, we need to also invest more in our zero waste goals. And we have our county partners telling us that our mayor and our city are not doing enough to do so, not investing enough to make sure that we're achieving those goals. And we know that Minneapolis is responsible for 3/4 of what goes into the HERC. And so if we're going to shut it down responsibly, we need a mayor that's going to take the initiative and invest in those goals. But lastly, we need to also support our local projects that tackle issues like reversing decades and generations of environmental injustice, things like the East Phillips urban farm project that not calling them pet projects, but actually listening to community and standing with community and putting your money where your mouth is. Not just coming in election time talking about I'm with the community and then screwing people over the next 3 years, 4 years. but actually listening and putting real investments in our community, and that's what I'll do as well.
This is so much more than just a future issue for the climate in our world. It is a future issue, but it's also a today issue. So many times people talk about this, our kids' future, and congratulations on your new addition to the family. This is our kids' future, but it's also right now. You know, I was talking with Bukata Hayes, who leads up the health and equity initiatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. And we talk about how your genetic code is not as good of an indicator as your zip code for your health outcomes. Let me say it again, the zip code you live in is a better indicator of your health than your genetic. That's why if you are one of those 200,000 plus people that live within a few miles of her, you likely carry around an inhaler like that. Your health outcomes are connected to this, and as always, if you are a marginalized member in our community, then it's going to hit you harder than anyone else. So we need to support homes that need to be weatherized so that, like in mine, when I was growing up, you don't open the oven to heat the house because it works a little better than the kitchen. We need to support these things so that when you're going and you're using Excel or CenterPoint Energy, the bill isn't going up and our usage of it isn't going up. We need to incentivize local entrepreneurs that are doing some really important work in this space to help us develop the solutions that will help us reach that 85% goal, because we're already falling behind. These are the things that we have to do. And if you don't know what you're aiming at, you're going to hit it every time. We have to actively work towards that goal and be honest about the roadmap of how close we are right now. Because sometimes I feel like we aren't being honest about already falling behind. We have to do better when it comes to that. And the last thing I'll say on this is we're the land of 10,000 lakes. For some reason, we're also the land of what feels like 10,000 nonprofit organizations. You ever feel that? And one of those nonprofit organizations just received over $50 million from the EPA to address these very same issues. Now, when we're talking about these slopes, and now $7 or $5 million being ripped from them, right on the precipice of doing some of those important work we can do locally on this project, we need to turn to these organizations and say, we're going to need some help. And if you're going to be a nonprofit organization that's helping doing this work, we need you to come into the community and listen to what they're asking us to do. And the dollars that when you're going to control the project, we need you to be a part of the solution. And that's what we need to do with our nonprofit partners that are here within the city of Minneapolis as well.
Okay, thank you to this first group. I will now invite the next three.
So the new step, yes. Yeah, I saw that. That's it. No, don't give me a script.
Okay, for round two, we're going to switch up the order of the candidates answering. That will be Hampton, Bate, and Davis. Caspian, I would like to pass the mic to you for the question.
Thank you. My name is Caspian, and I'm a Minneapolis resident and voter. Minneapolis has a separation ordinance that prevents NPD and other city personnel from supporting ICE and immigration enforcement efforts. This is positive, but it's not enough for our current environment. We're in a new political moment, and we are seeing federal authorities from multiple agencies abusing their power, violating constitutional rights of individuals, covering their faces or refusing to wear badges, and terrorizing community members across the country. We saw this in our own community at the corner of Lake and Bloomington on June 3rd. It was outrageous, regardless of the supposed criminal investigation behind it. The strong mayor amendment passed by the voters in Minneapolis in 2021 has given the mayor primary authority over NPD. With all of that in mind, what actions do you plan to take as mayor to ensure ensure that city agencies, including MPD, I'm gonna slow down. With all of that in mind, what actions do you plan to take as mayor to ensure that all city agencies, including MPD, protect the rights of all of the people who live in Minneapolis, regardless of their immigration status? What will you do if federal militarized forces come into Minneapolis again, regardless of the agencies involved or intended operations?
Thank you for that question. I think this is an incredibly important topic. I'll start by saying that everyone who is sitting at this table was at Lake Bloomington. Nothing better than that. And an interesting caveat about that, when I was in a meeting about revitalizing downtown at the time I came out, I actually had a text from Senator Pate that told me what was going on. And that's how I'll see you there, because I'm going as well. And it speaks to some of the leadership that we need to see within the city. I saw pictures with every kind of acronym you can see on their vests and badges. I saw so many things. I saw people throw it. I saw them. I was there trying to de-escalate. Folks were throwing trash cans around and pushing that already started. But here's what I want to see. I want to be explicit about how I feel about this topic. If there are federal ICE agents and other federal agents pushing and being aggressive towards our residents, I do want the Minneapolis police there, but I want to make sure that their feet are pointing in the right direction. And they're actually protecting the residents that they serve within the city of Minneapolis. That is what I believe should be happening. I'm going to be honest with you, if federal agents stormed our city and they were pushing our residents, I hope that they aren't sitting back in the precinct saying, I hope they handle that all right. I hope they're there to actually protect the residents who should be there. And call it for what it is. If there are immigration folks there and they're targeting with Humvees, remember they went to multiple locations that day. There weren't Humvees at multiple locations. It was intentional to terrorize our neighbors. They were trying to go to work, pay the bills, and raise their children in the same way everyone else is trying to chase this so-called American dream. It was terrorizing and it was intentional. And we need to show them that. And so if the police department's going to be there, their feet have to be facing in the right direction. And I believe that they should be doing that. And if not, we need to find out what happened and why we weren't doing that. And that's the same statement I released the very same day that it happened. That is what our police department should be doing in this moment. And frankly, we have to change the way we're planning for it ahead of time. Don't you think we should know if there are Humvees circling around our state and what they're going to be doing? That is a part of public safety that we should be in front of, not waiting for. That's the work we need to be doing. If there is some kind of drug ring and it needs to be busted by the FBI also, call us. Let us know. I want to help bust a drug ring. I do not want to help terrorize our communities and our neighbors.
Seeing what happened on Lake in Bloomington on June 3rd, which is part of the district that I'm honored to represent in South Minneapolis, we learned a lot. We learned that our separation ordinance is not strong enough. We learned that MPD and the mayor are not quick enough in disseminating information to our city council members, and our city council members are left in the dark. And then by default, if they're left in the dark, our community members are left in the dark. And because of that, that is what led to the chaos and anxiety, and rightfully so, that we saw that day. As mayor, I would ensure that we're strengthening our separation ordinance, that any time that there's federal agencies in our city, that our city council is alerted, and also our communities are alerted. That's number one. Number two, any MPD officer, including the chief, that collaborates with ICE would be terminated, period. And I'll take it a little bit of a step further, that regardless of the situation, whether it's for crowd control or not, my belief is that we don't want NPD over there. It's not the job of the city to clean up their mess. And our community members, from what I've seen, are more comfortable seeing folks like Unidos and our organizations that are boots on the ground, that are providing that comfort to community members. I serve as the chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee, and I've seen myself, the terror that our students have faced, getting picked up in the middle of the night by ICE, our undocumented students, at U of M, and Mankato State, for example, places in which their parents had no idea where they're being taken, their lawyers have no idea where they're being detained, and people just left out in the dark. And in those kind of times, the presidents are afraid. They're afraid of losing funding because if they're seen to provide any sort of support for our undocumented students, they're worried about losing funding. And it's scary because now people's resolve will be tested more than ever. They're going to try to make you sacrifice your values for funding. And that's where we're at right now. And at no point, for any reason, whether we're protecting our residents that are trans or immigrants from a hostile federal government, we got to do the right thing every single time.
Thank you for that question. After the aftermath of the lake in Bloomington raid over there, what was one of the most disappointing things was to see how Jacob Fry attacked us. He attacked us more viciously than he even did the president who's responsible for sending them out. And that's very telling. That's very telling, that the criticism was all about us, but it was not about, tanks in our streets terrorizing our community. But what that does suggest, and what I'm worried about, and what I will do as mayor, is that we need to be proactively engaged with our immigrant communities on this at every step of the way. And what I mean by that, not only hearing about our immigrant community's experience, but also being in direct conversation with our immigrant communities to tell them how we're going to support you, what your rights are, that the city of Minneapolis is going to protect you, and with every bit of responsibility it has, it is going to make sure that that you are not detained and deported if we can help. That is assurances. We need to have at least one government entity that is countering the junk that's coming out of Washington and telling you that we're going to support you. But here's how we're going to do it too. We need to be far more aggressive. I keep looking at our state attorney general, who is so aggressively challenging everything he can whenever he can. Well, I want our city attorney to set up shop with our attorney general and figure out how we can be just as aggressive and just as proactive. And here's the thing, I know, because the attorney general has said there are things that he cannot do because he does not have standing, or the state doesn't have standing to sue anybody. Well, perhaps if the administration is coming out to Minneapolis, then we do have standing. And we ought to be actively preventing them and suing them and doing everything we can to stop them from harassing our immigrant communities. And I will be very much pushing our people to do this. And finally, accountability. Another thing that we were all attacked about, we had a question about, would you hold the police department accountable if they are cooperating with ICE? And all of us said, yes. Accountability is saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What do you think you were doing? And will you do it again? No. We were pilloried because we would dare say that our police should come and give an account of what they knew, when they knew, why they did, and what action they took. And that's what we'll do to make sure that no one is cooperating with the illiberal, illegal administration in Washington.
My name is Jake. I work in the restaurant industry downtown. I've heard a lot from city leaders lately about the need to improve safety downtown to attract more people to live and visit downtown, revitalize the entertainment industry. But what's been missing in the conversation is the safety of downtown workers, particularly in the hospitality industry. Hospitality workers face challenges such as lack of safe, reliable, and frequent public transportation, especially late at night. We also frequently find ourselves in situations in which people come into the establishment off the street in crisis or in states of consciousness. We're just not trained to handle the situation safely. In these situations, we do not want to endanger these people more by calling the police. What are your ideas for prioritizing workers and their safety in the industry most critical to revitalization? How do you engage with downtown workers in building, implementing compliance management?
Jay, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And I feel I grew up with a mom alone at a restaurant, a small restaurant here, which is now, I'm sorry. Growing up in that, I have a very deep and close connection to the community you're talking about. I worked at everyone from that restaurant to Applebee's and beyond. And I know what late night feels like when you're leaving the building, but also the thing that I know to be true is they want great workers to work in the North Loop, but aren't being paid enough to also live in the North Loop, right? Yeah. And that means when you get off your shift at 2 a.m., you're taking a bus to another city, or you're riding a bicycle, hoping that the bike lane is illuminated, or you're taking a bus hoping you're going to feel safe in that moment, or a train where you don't technically is the best option if you're feeling unsafe. One of the most common things I ask in forums like this, I ask you to do it right now. Nod your head yes if you've seen what might be a mental health crisis or addiction-related crisis on the street in person in Minneapolis, and you were too nervous to call 911. That isn't public safety. If you feel like calling public safety is going to make the situation less safe, we got to fix that. And if you're feeling like 911 isn't the answer, we need to develop another calling number to reroute the order of operations to ensure that people know when they're calling, they don't think it's going to get worse. Very recently, I called because there was an individual in a park who was doing some, in front of my children, doing some uncomfortable things with his hand inside his clothes. And I called 911 to plead with them. Please assure me that you're not just sending police. Oh, well, before you describe your other hands, we have to send police. Who else are you sending? I shouldn't have to feel that pressure. We should know that our government and the public safety system we're setting up is already going to do that. And we should allow not only that, but training for individuals to know how and where to call on that. We have to be better about it. We also, to your question about transit, we have to expand the safety and availability of transit, especially late at night. We can't expect to want to go out to eat and stay there till 2 in the morning and not worry about how anyone's going to get home. On a related topic, I talked to a young high school student who said, I'd rather take an Uber that I can't afford to my school in North Minneapolis than ride the bus because I'm not feeling safe in that. We have to be better for our residents. And it starts with ensuring that public safety doesn't make you feel unsafe when you have to interact with it and improving those kind of transit solutions.
Well, thank you for sharing the question and your experience. And what we know is that people enjoy going downtown to enjoy our local events. They go to our stadiums, they go to our various venues, but it's our hospitality workers that have all that function and work well. And without our workers, none of that would be possible. So it's our duty to serve and protect all of them. Now, I appreciate everything that my friend Mr. Jazz Hampton said, that when our workers are not feeling safe, and there's maybe a little bit of unease to call 911. We gotta make sure that both the workers feel safe and the people that they're calling in on also are not harmed. And we know that we need to ramp up and build out our alternatives to policing, because the city's own report at the end of last year showed that 47%, nearly half of all calls to 911 can be diverted away from MPD. We don't need an officer to respond to every single call, and we know we can make that happen. And so, for example, we worked really hard last biennium to bring in $19 million in public safety aid to the city to do things like beef up our support for alternatives to policing. But what happened? For a long time, the money went largely untouched because the mayor was disagreeing with the city council on how to allocate that money. And we think that's a tragedy, because that's money that is supposed to be meant to protect all of our residents in every scenario. But also to protect and serve our workers, we need to do things like making sure they're not closing and opening. We gotta make sure that our workers are given a livable wage, increasing the wages to $20 an hour to make sure that everyone has enough to survive and pay for rent and food and basic necessities. All that plays a part into it. And yes, building out and supporting our transit infrastructure, whether workers want to go late night on the light rail going back home, feel safe on our buses. That's up to the administration. But things are largely undone because we have a mayor that's unwilling to stand up to labor and unwilling to stand up for workers. And I know my friend Jazz mentioned earlier that we're the land of 10,000 nonprofits, but I'll extend that to say we have a mayor with, we're a city with a mayor with 10,000 excuses. And if we had a mayor that worked as hard trying to work with the community rather than explaining why things are not happening, we wouldn't have this happen.
Thank you. Largely agree with many of what my colleagues said. I want to add this, though. This also goes back to what I think has been critically important. I co-chaired the Community Safety Work Group in 2022. We made several recommendations about expanding behavioral crisis response. We made a recommendation about how to beef up community violence intervention programs and Office of Violence Office of Violence Prevention. But it all goes down to this one thing. We really do have to invest. The scenarios that you mentioned, people coming in, homeless people with mental health crisis, we have to invest in human needs services. We just simply have to do it. We've tried to do it on the cheap. We've been blaming Hennepin County, but we have not been as aggressive and as proactive in allocating dollars to invest in human needs, whether that be mental health services, whether that be substance use disorder services. This is the same issue that is creating encampments because we will not invest in human needs. And so we really have to start there, where we're going to put the resources out there, we're going to retain providers, and we're going to make sure that we can deploy them all over the city. And that also includes building out in every corner of the city behavioral crisis response, so that you know that you're going to be able to call somebody, an office that can come and take care of those particular incidents, even if you don't have to call the police. But I also want to talk about, there's another thing that we're missing, and it's going to be helpful. It's about downtown, but it's about North Minneapolis, where I live. It's about all of the city. We are going to have to, this is a all hands on deck, whole of government issue around safety. And so one of the things that I think is missing is that we come up with some great ideas and we say, oh, look, that's what we're going to do. But as your mayor, what I'm going to be responsible for and make sure the whole enterprise is responsible for is a comprehensive violence intervention and reduction plan that is regularly updated and refreshed so that we are on it every single time. And that means every part of the city, especially downtown, and you will feel it and you will know it. And you know why I know this work? Because if you go and look at all around the United States where they're talking about the decreases in crime, especially in places that are, it is because people have finally said, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to have a comprehensive violence intervention and reduction plan. We're going to include all the people involved, workers, residents, neighborhood associations, county, state. We can't do this go-it-alone approach anymore, so we can be safe.
And for the last question, I have a video. It's a question in Spanish, so I will be interpreting.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alibella Rodríguez. Yo vivo aquí en Minneapolis por 24 años y durante ese tiempo he estado rentando.
My name is Alibella. I have been living in Minneapolis for 4 years, and I've been renting for that time. Oh, 24 years.
La mayoría de nuestras familias gastamos casi la mitad de nuestros ingresos en vivienda, lo que nos obliga a elegir entre alquiler, la comida, facturas médicas y otras necesidades esenciales.
The majority of our families are spending almost half of our income on housing costs, forcing us to choose between rent, groceries, medical bills, and other essential needs.
Mientras tanto, el alquiler mientras tanto, nuestros caseros se enriquecen cada vez más a medida que nos suben la renta.
Meanwhile, our landlords get richer and richer as they keep increasing our rent.
¿Apoya estabilización de renta, de alquiler, sí o no?
Do you support rent stabilization, yes or no?
¿Qué propuestas específicas tiene para limitar el poder de los caseros que suben el alquiler de la renta y aumenten y sigan haciendo más ricos?
If yes, what kind of policy do you support? And if not, what specific proposals do you have to limit the power of landlords to raise rent just to increase their profit?
I want to be, again, I've said this before, I want to be direct with my answer. Thank you. I want to be direct with my answer here as well. As it has been presented before, I do not think rent stabilization specifically is the best policy in this moment. What I believe is the best policy in this moment. If your landlord comes and says, I'm going to increase your rent by 10, 15, 20%, you have the ability to say, then I'm not going to rent from you, and I'm going to rent from someone else. And you have enough options within our city to do that. And right now, we do not have enough options within the city, and the building has been stagnant. What happened in St. Paul is the fear, I think, on so many people's minds. We have to ensure that there is actually building being done within the city. And the building is not from for-profit entities that are in another state. It's people who own and live within this area, people who care about this community, and it's nonprofit organizations. If we continue to lean on for-profit organizations, they will continue to drive up profits at their own costs. Rent should never be 50% of your income. It should never, ever happen. And it's more than just rent. Think about that percentage. If it's 50% of your income, you need to make more money. And in order to make more money, we have to ensure that wages are being stolen and people are actually being paid over the wage. We have to ensure that other costs of things within the city, including transportation, are not getting higher. We have to have more building because optionality is the option that can actually address this problem. That is my belief, and that's what this is what our administration will push forward. If we cannot get landlords to bring down their prices, we need to get more and better landlords within this city.
Thank you. To answer your question, yes, I do support the stabilization policy. But I do believe we can have a rent stabilization policy and at the same time incentivize a new building. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think that you can't have one without the other. And I remember in the past, I was volunteering with one of the local shelters, and in having conversations with some of our unhoused neighbors. Yes, there are a lot of folks that had maybe mental health issues or substance use issues, but there's a whole lot of people that were simply just priced out of their homes, right? And that's heartbreaking. But at the same time, I want to mention that I do strongly support a rent stabilization policy, but that's just one tool in the toolbox. We need a whole host of policies to protect our renters, just like we saw earlier with our friend in the last question group with our tenant union that's combating a bad actor, a bad property owner that's giving them sub-livable living conditions. And we need to do things like just cause evictions, right? Just cause eviction policies, making sure that we understand that the number of reasons why people are experiencing homelessness is because they're getting kicked out, they're getting evicted. We gotta tackle that. We gotta support ideas like at the city council, like TOPA, the Top Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And at the city council support the opportunity to own one place. There's a whole host of issues that we can do, including yes, rent stabilization. But unfortunately, we have a mayor that's beholden to corporations, wealthy developers, and not the everyday person. And I will be the mayor that represents our renters and the everyday worker and the everyday person. Thank you.
I love that the answer about expanded rent stabilization if it includes certain things. So again, if in imposing rent control, I do not support, especially when we need more supply. But what I do support is public ownership of apartments so that you can set rent at a certain point. Let the government set its own rent. Making it permanently affordable, meaning that if it's publicly owned, then we know that nonprofits and public developers will not be following market rates. They will set it based upon a people-centered rental policy. I support tenant opportunity to purchase act. Expanded, again, dealing with just cause eviction. I think that we must require certain standards to be met before you kick anybody out of their apartment, short of if you want to sell. I believe and this is why I want the government involved. I think the government should be involved because we need to figure out how we can create opportunities for people owning public housing. That is, if you are in affordable housing, there's a process for you to own that housing. I believe in making sure that we decommodify housing, meaning that we sanction private developers for speculating in housing. And we have real rules to stop them from, again, that's why you have so many people coming in from out of state, because this is a speculative market. And they're in here trying to make money. We need to have some real controls on that. I think we should be very aggressive on equitable housing. That is, are you mistreating Black and brown communities and immigrant communities because you think they have no power? We should be on that work, looking to make sure that we're enforcing the law and really pointing out people who are bad actors. Tenant security, every way that we can secure on the side of people, securing that people can stay in their apartments, but also not just any apartment, that landlords and property owners are going to be held to account for the safety and the conditions of that housing. We need to be very aggressive in policing that kind of behavior. So I believe in all of these efforts so that we make sure that the government is driving. I said it earlier, the government has forfeited its responsibility and has privatized all housing. If the government gets back into that role, then we can make sure that we can keep a limit on rents, we can provide real tenant security, and we can make sure that housing is permanently affordable.
Question and answer.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna give you did such a great job planning this event, and the candidates were so respectful of their time limits. We're ahead of schedule. So we would like to invite the candidates to offer some closing remarks. You'll each get 3 minutes. And we'll start with candidate Pate, and then we'll go to candidate Davis, and then to candidate Hampton. You want 30 seconds to jot some things down?
No. Yes. First, I want to thank all the organizations and the hosts for having this event, and all of you for participating. And my brothers, Glenn and Jazz, for taking part in this forum as well. My name is Omar Pate, State Senator, Southside Minneapolis, and now candidate for mayor of Minneapolis. I want to let you all know that it would be an honor and a lifetime to serve as your next mayor. I'm honored to be endorsed by multiple unions such as SEIU and Unite Here. I'm honored to be endorsed as the first choice candidate by 6 of the 13 city council members. We've seen a lot of energy behind this campaign with over 1,000 volunteers signing up on the website. For about a month, we were DFL endorsed, but that's okay. I have a tombstone in the office but this is a really important election. We have a mayor that campaigned in 2017 saying that in 5 years he'd end homelessness. And right now we have more unhoused neighbors than when we first took office. We have a mayor that said that he would stand up for our workers and for labor. But when it came to protecting our Uber and Lyft drivers or supporting the Labor Standards Board, he caved and vetoed. We have a mayor that said that we are a sanctuary city and will protect all of our residents from Donald Trump. But when it came to the raid on June 3rd, what happened? We saw that our city council members were left out in the dark, that our communities were left in chaos, and that MPD was on the scene, regardless of what they were saying, and proving that we need to strengthen our separation ordinance, and more than anything, we need the truth from the administration, not just explaining away why things are not happening or trying to hide information, but being upfront and honest with our community at every step of the way. And that's the issue we're having with public safety, with housing, with labor, with our immigrant communities, with a whole host of issues, is that people are just not being told the truth. We have a mayor that's not communicating with our communities, not communicating with our city council, and having instead an adversarial relationship with all of the above. Now, early voting starts September 19th through November 4th. Rank all 3 of us, myself, Dwayne, and Jazz, and do not rank Mayor Fry. This is going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach because unfortunately, we like to talk about our mayor not having a good relationship with city council, but that extends to the county and to the state legislature and the federal. And so we need now more than ever a mayor that's a collaborator that protects everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the wonderful conversation and the wonderful questions. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad to see your wonderful, beautiful faces. I am Dwayne Davis, and I hope you'll choose me to be your mayor. One of the things I really want you to know is that we don't have to accept that this is the best that we can do. We don't have to accept that the cost of doing business is to fight with every level of government and isolate yourself from people, or point the finger when things don't go your way. We don't have to accept that government is always cynical and only responsive to the biggest donors or the big developers. We don't have to accept that. And here's the thing that I want you to know more than anything. Minneapolis is just so blessed with an abundance of riches in people, in creativity, in possibility. Just anywhere you go throughout this city, in every neighborhood, you see thriving, promising activity, people doing all kinds of things. So here's why I want you to understand that. Because do not accept this scarcity model or this cynical model that we can't do better than what we're doing now, or that the status quo is good enough just for the next term. No, we deserve better and we can do better. And here's the thing, here's why we're gonna have to do it. Because we now know what Washington is up to. They have already said that they're gonna come after us, and they're coming after us because we have been successful at what we do. They're coming after us because we do make sure that we're trying to make sure we don't leave anybody behind, whether they be our immigrants or LGBTQ people. We are saying we're gonna be a sanctuary, we're gonna be a city that everyone is welcome to, and they are gonna attack us for it. So we cannot afford another term of a mayor who is isolated, not only from the city council, but from the Hennepin County Board of Commissioners, from the Minneapolis area delegation, and from the federal government. It needs all of us working together. We deserve better, we can do better. And here's the beautiful thing about it. When I'm your mayor, I'll tell you something. The rest of the nation is going to look at us and say, Minneapolis did it, we can do it too. And with all of us doing that, then we will have what we need to counter what's coming out of Washington. I love the democracy that we have. I am not giving it up to someone like Donald Trump. I need you to help me to make sure that we don't.
Again, thank you all for coming, and thank you both for being here as well. I'm honored to be on the stage with both of you. My name is Chance Hampton. I cannot wait to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. We didn't have a chance to discuss or talk about backgrounds too much, and so I want you to know a little bit about Chance. First of all, that is my brother. My sister's in career name is Sunshine. I don't know the best name out there. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3 children, 3 Minneapolis public school children. I'll be the first mayor in 25 years to have children in this public school system. And I can't wait for that. I'm an attorney, I'm a professor of entrepreneurial finance, all these backgrounds and experiences, and I always say they're all tributaries to this river that we are now. We need someone with actual managerial experience in this moment. We have a $2 billion budget with thousands of employees. And we have people that have done any management work leading that charge. We have to do better in the city of Minneapolis. When I think about public safety, my car's been stolen 3 times in the last 5 years. I've never heard of anyone being prosecuted or looking for. And at the same time, my security alarm has gone off. And when I called my wife to tell her what's going on, I said, I'm gonna go run and hide in the basement because I don't want them to see my black body on the steps when they're around here. Both of those things are true, and we have to address it. We have a president that is literally a criminal coming to persecute and prosecute our neighbors. He's coming for our LGBTQIA neighbors, he's coming for our immigrant neighbors, and we have to have someone not that is going to power in this moment, but who's going to stand up and protect our neighbors. Who's going to use the law to not only protect them, but as a sword to protect them and go further on their behalf. I can't wait to be that mayor on behalf of this city. Like I said, I've lived within a few miles of Foro City for my entire life. It's not just where I'm from, it's who I am. And that's why I'm so excited to be mayor in this moment. because we need someone that we can trust to stand up for us with the experience to get it done. We've seen it time and time again within this city. We said that if this was a basketball coach and we felt like we had made the playoffs in several years and the contract is up, we wouldn't sign another contract. It's time for the leadership, and one of the frustrating things that I've seen too many times recently is the current leadership saying, I've learned a lot and I've grown. That isn't a qualifier to keep the job. I won't have to learn a lot and grow when I step into this position. I will already be a great leader for this city. And I hope you earn your first choice rank in this election, and I hope you fully rank your battle. It's really, really important, because if you don't, you are not going to get the results you like. If you go to Chipotle and you ask for a chicken burrito and they say we're on a chicken, and they just shove a eatable in front of you, I'd be upset. Well, at least get chicken. Please, fully rank your ballot and know that we have a great choice in this election. We cannot wait to represent. Thank you so much.
That scenario happened.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We hope that the discussions that we've had sparked some important thoughts about the future of our city. As organizers and as community members, we all know that our work doesn't end here. The conversations we've had tonight should fuel us to continue to push for a Minneapolis where justice, dignity, and equity are not just ideals, but realities. For everyone, especially our working class, BIPOC, and immigrant communities. To the candidates, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight and for sharing your visions. And to everyone here, thank you for your commitment to a better future for all of us. We will keep fighting, we will keep organizing, and we will keep holding those in power accountable. Together, we are unstoppable.
And thank you to everyone again for coming and to all the candidates for joining us tonight for this wonderful conversation. The work that has brought us here and the work that lies ahead is bigger than any one of us. It is a collective effort. Remember that the real power is in our community, and when we stand together, we can win the change that we need. We look forward to continuing the work with all of you. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and let's keep building this movement. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.